National League North review for December, let's get into it. So going into December, Tamworth were leading the way on 41 points, followed by Scunthorpe and South Shields. Curzon, Chorley, Spennymoor and Brackley made up the playoff positions. At the bottom, Kings Lynn, Darlington, Gloucester and Bishop Stortford all sat in the relegation zone. So we're going to start on Saturday the 2nd of December, where only 3 games were played due to the bad weather, and we'll kick things off at Edgar Street as 2nd place Scunthorpe travelled away to 8th place Hereford. And 12 minutes in, Scunthorpe took the lead with a very bizarre goal. It starts from Kean Scales' block, which almost loops over the goalkeeper, and after a rebounded effort, Danny Whitehall drills the ball into the back of the net to make it 1-0. Hereford had been in good form at home, winning 6 of their last 8, only conceding 4 goals, so it was surprising how error-prone this Hereford team was. The goalkeeper Curtis Pond had a bit of a nightmare, and there were so many misplaced Hereford passes putting themselves under unnecessary pressure, and Scunthorpe were ruthless in how they exploited them. What didn't help Hereford was the fact that Tom Pugh couldn't play this game, as he is on loan from Scunthorpe and couldn't play against his parent club. Since Pugh was coming on loan, he makes a big difference in that midfield with Jordan Lydon out injured, so he was a big miss. But it was an off day for Hereford, and Scunthorpe were very clinical in front of goal. The game finished 5-1, and with Tamworth not playing, that win put Scunthorpe up into first. It was a big game at the bottom of the table, as Rushall and Blythe both had the chance to put some breathing space between themselves and the relegation zone with a win, and Rushall fans would have been happy to see the return of National League North top scorer Danny Waldron back in the squad amidst rumours of a move to Southend once their embargo was lifted. And Rushall started this game well, and in the 25th minute Andre Landell put them 1-0 up, rounding the goalkeeper. But then in the 53rd minute, Sonny Singh was given a second yellow card for kicking the ball out of the ground when the whistle was already blown for offside. And sometimes against 10 men, teams can become more difficult to play against, but this moment completely swung the game in Blythe's favour. Goals from Njolly, McGowan and Cedric Main gave Blythe a vital 3-1 win to move them away from the relegation zone. In the third and final game, Brackley put themselves up into 4th with a 2-1 win at home to Boston. Brackley were 2-0 up inside the first 15 minutes thanks to goals from Zach Lilly and Morgan Roberts. And with Boston's lack of goals this season, they can't afford to go 2 down in games, so it was always going to be a struggle from there. Boston did get a goal back through Brad Nicholson, but the game finished 2-1 to Brackley. So after those games, Scunthorpe move into top spot, but Tamworth have a game in hand. Brackley jump up into 4th, with both Hereford and Boston missing the chance to leap into the playoffs. Blythe's win puts them up into 14th, 5 points clear of the relegation zone, but only 4 points off the playoffs in a very tight division. Now on to Tuesday the 5th of December, where there were only 2 games played, and we'll start at Chester, who beat 4th place Brackley 1-0 thanks to a George Glendon penalty. And it's fair to say that Chester rode their luck in this game. It was a very backs-to-the-wall performance in the second half, and Brackley probably should have gotten something out of the game, but Will Stanway in the Chester goal made some superb saves. They defended well at times, and that win puts Chester up into 8th. Moving on to Hereford versus Warrington, this game was defined by 3 moments of madness in the first half from Warrington. In the 24th minute they went down to 10 men due to this headbutt from Connor Woods. Then 2 minutes later, the Warrington goalkeeper Dan Atherton, who's usually pretty good with the ball at his feet, gives the ball away after some very heavy touches, and Jason Cowley puts the ball into the empty net to put Hereford 1-0 up. Then 10 minutes later, Warrington went down to 9 men when Bohan Dixon got a second yellow card for this tackle. But against all odds, just before half-time, Warrington won a penalty and Sean Williams drills it into the back of the net to put the game to 1-1 and give 9-men Warrington something to hold on to. Warrington absolutely worked their socks off in the second half and ran themselves into the ground, and goalkeeper Dan Atherton made some super saves, but in the 76th minute, a lovely little flick from Fremantle gives Hereford the 2-1 lead, and that's how the game finished. A fantastic effort from Warrington with 9 men, but for Hereford a win is a win, and that puts them up into 5th. So after those 2 games, Chester's win puts them just outside the playoffs in 8th, whereas Hereford's win takes them from 8th into 5th. On to Saturday the 9th of December, where once again only 2 games were played due to FA Trophy action, and we'll start with Tamworth as this is their game in hand over Scunthorpe. If they were to beat 8th place Chester, they would go back top of the table, but this was never going to be an easy game as Chester had only lost once at home this season, and 10 minutes in, Elliot Whitehouse showed some superb technique and caught the ball perfectly for the 1-0 lead. Then in the 63rd minute, Chester goalkeeper Will Stanway played a peach of a ball through to Owen Windsor, who scored his first goal for the club since signing from Chippenham, and he's a real handful up front and could be a very useful player for Chester, and 2-0 is how the game finished. A fantastic result for Chester, who just seemed to play the conditions better than Tamworth. There was very strong winds making it impossible to play football, but that win puts Chester up into 4th and keeps Tamworth in 2nd. Now on to Warrington versus Scarborough, a repeat of the Northern Premier League playoff final from 2 seasons ago, which Scarborough won 2-1, but this time Warrington got their revenge, putting 4 past a 10-men Scarborough team, who seemed to have an eye on their FA Cup game against Forest Green in midweek. Also missing captain Will Thornton to suspension, and Lewis Maloney to injury wouldn't have helped, but Warrington were fantastic, especially Buckley Ricketts, whose solo effort on the counter-attack for the second goal was phenomenal. He's so direct and always causes opposition teams problems when he starts running at them with pace, but the big positive for Warrington is that this was their first clean sheet since September, and that win puts them up into 11th. Now on to Tuesday the 12th of December, where we had a couple of matches played, and we'll start at the bottom of the table where 23rd place Gloucester got a massive 2-1 victory at home to Peterborough Sports, which included a beautiful lobbed goal from Brandon Smalley. Gloucester almost threw it away in the second half as Peterborough Sports made it 1-1, but in the 87th minute a Danny Wright header gave Gloucester the 2-1 win and moved them to within 7 points from safety, so still a lot of work to do. On to another big game at the bottom of the table as a win for 21st place Kings Lynn would take them out of the relegation zone, but they suffered a 2-1 defeat to Banbury, and considering Kings Lynn had 17 days rest, they'd got an injured players back fit and into the squad, plus the advantages of being a full-time professional club. I'd have expected a much better performance, but that's now Kings Lynn's 4th defeat in a row, and they are in a bit of trouble at the moment. On to 17th place Farsley Celtic at home to 7th place Curzon Ashton, and Curzon deservedly took the lead in the 26th minute through a George Waring header. Curzon went on to play some good football and control the game, but they couldn't quite get the goals to kill off Farsley, and they would live to regret that, as in the 94th minute Chris Atkinson slots the ball past the keeper to make the game 1-1. But the game wasn't quite done there, as in the 96th minute Mikael Coulson scores an outrageous free kick to win the game 2-1 for Farsley. 2 stoppage time goals to turn the game around. Heartbreaking for Curzon, who had played so well, but those final few minutes was a lesson in how not to see a game out, and full credit to Farsley for hanging on in there and punishing Curzon at the end. Now on to December the 16th, where we finally got a full round of fixtures, and we'll start with the league leaders Scunthorpe, who played Chorley. These are the 2 form sides in the division, but it ended up being a pretty routine 3-0 victory for Scunthorpe. Chorley actually looked pretty lively the first 15 minutes and started off the better side, but from then on Scunthorpe settled into the game and completely controlled the play. Winger Callum Roberts, who's had an injury hit start to his Scunthorpe career, is starting to get up to speed and up to fitness, and as a result we're seeing that he's far too good for this league. The way he glides past defenders and his movement is a real handful to defend against, and he was superb against Chorley. A convincing 3-0 win against the form side in the league, and things are looking good for Scunthorpe. As for second place Tamworth, there's no highlights posted of their game against Southport, but a 4-0 win keeps them within 2 points of Scunthorpe. Third place South Shields needed a victory at home to 18th place Peterborough Sports to try and keep pace with both Tamworth and Scunthorpe, but 5 minutes into the game they found themselves 1 down as Dion Sembi Ferris, who was actually at Peterborough Sports for 5 years. Then in the summer he got his big move to Scunthorpe, but hasn't been getting into the team, so Scunthorpe have loaned him back to Peterborough, and he's given them a massive lift and has already scored 3 goals in his first couple of games back. Some more calamitous defending from Shields saw Peterborough go 2-0 up just before half time. Paul Blackett pulled a goal back to make it 2-1, but that's how the game finished, and that loss means South Shields are now 8 points behind second and 10 points behind first. Hereford moved up into 4th place with a win away at bottom of the table Bishop Stortford. This wasn't a game high on quality, and that's not surprising with a very bobbly surface, but Hereford worked hard, they won the game, and that's all that matters for them. Bishop Stortford were always in the game but created very little, and they are now sitting bottom of the table 10 points from safety. It was a big game in the race for playoffs as 8th place Curzon Ashton were up against 5th place Brackley, and Curzon were looking for a response after the heartbreaking loss to Farsley last time out when they conceded 2 goals in the 90th minute, but they took the lead through George Waring in the 32nd minute. In the second half, player manager for Curzon Craig Mann showed quick feet, but his shot really should have been saved, but the Brackley goalkeeper on his debut spills the ball into the net for 2-0, and that win for Curzon puts them up into 5th. It was a huge game at the bottom of the table as 22nd place Gloucester at home to 23rd place Darlington, and 9 minutes into the game Johnny Ngandu showed some lovely feet in the area and curled the ball into the top right hand corner to give Darlow the 1-0 lead. From then on, Gloucester showed plenty of effort, plenty of determination, but really struggled to break down this Darlington team. But it was a fantastic away performance by Darlington. They dug deep, and with Asante getting almost a full game, that'll be a help if they can get him fit, as he's very capable of scoring goals at this level. But he's been in and out of the treatment room the last couple of seasons. But to take points off a relegation rival and to close the gap to 5 points from safety is a step in the right direction for Darlington. So here is how the table looked after December the 16th. Scunthorpe are top of the table, 2 points clear of Tamworth in second. A sizable gap is starting to form between the top two and South Shields in third. Hereford, Curzon, Chester and Chorley make up the playoffs. At the bottom of the table, Darlington's victory over Gloucester puts them up into 22nd. Bishop Stortford are starting to get cut adrift as they are now 10 points from safety, and Kings Lynn's draw against Warrington moves them to a point from safety. On Tuesday the 19th we had 2 games played, and we'll start with Gloucester, who after losing to Darlington put in their best performance of the season against Curzon with an excellent 3-0 win. They took the lead 8 minutes in through Joe Hanks. Then in the 72nd minute, Pinchard played a beautiful ball to the back post, and Pinchard was excellent in midfield pulling the strings. He's someone who's mostly been played on the wing, but since being moved more centrally he's looked a lot more impressive with his ability to keep the ball and pick out a pass, and Curzon gave him far too much space all game. But a convincing win for Gloucester, and they were 11 points off safety at one point, but 3 wins in their last 4 has moved them to just 4 points off safety. Now on to Chorley, who responded to their heavy defeat against Scunthorpe with a fantastic 4-1 win away at Banbury. The squad is a bit light at the moment, with only 3 subs being named on the bench, which is a slight concern, but the 11 that were on the pitch were all excellent anyway, especially that front 3 of Marco Russ, Carlton and Justin Johnson, who all linked up so well, and if Johnson keeps playing like he is, Chorley are going to struggle to keep hold of him, and that win puts them up into 3rd. But as good as Chorley were, Banbury were once again really poor at home. They've got the 3rd best away record in the league, which is keeping them out of trouble, but they've got the worst home record in the league, and as a result attendances are dropping, and without that income coming through the turnstiles, they aren't going to have as much money to invest in the squad. So as good as they are away from home, that home form desperately needs sorting. After those 2 games, here is the table. Chorley move up into 3rd, and defeat for Curzon keeps them in 7th. As for Gloucester, they leapfrog Darlington up into 22nd and sit 4 points off safety. Now on to Saturday, December the 23rd, and who would go into Christmas Day top of the table? We'll start with leaders Scunthorpe, who had to settle for a 0-0 draw away to Buxton, and Buxton seem to have Scunthorpe's number. They've already beaten them twice this season, and now they've taken a point off them. With Scunthorpe drawing, Tamworth took the chance to go level on points with a 4-1 win away at Peterborough Sports. However, Scunthorpe are still top on goal difference, and once again no Tamworth highlights posted, so we'll just move on. Once again, Chorley continue to be free scoring, and they put in a ruthless attacking display against a Curzon team who look very good in possession. They keep the ball on the floor and they play some nice football, but unfortunately for them, they didn't really have the quality in the final third to pose a threat, and Chorley ended up blowing them away. And you see a lot of teams who go in front and they'll naturally start to sit back, but Chorley never let up. They constantly go at teams, and that's why in recent weeks we've seen them put 8 past Darlington, 3 past Buxton, 4 past Banbury, and now 4 past the playoff rival in Curzon, and this win keeps Chorley in 3rd. Now on to Kings Lynn, whose future looks quite uncertain at the moment. Owner Stephen Cleeve came out this week and said that Kings Lynn need £300,000 to get to the end of the season. Now they've been in this situation before. Kings Lynn Town was founded in 2010 when Kings Lynn FC were wound up back in 2009. So if the worst comes to worst, hopefully Kings Lynn can bounce back again like they have before. But they're going to need some investment, otherwise it's not looking like they'll see out the rest of the season. But despite this week of turmoil at the club, that didn't stop Kings Lynn from putting in a fantastic 4-0 win away to Southport. A great response from the players. As for Southport, they are conceding goals for fun at the moment. That's 18 goals conceded in their last 4 games. They conceded 4 against Runcorn in the Cup, 6 against Chesterfield in the Cup, 4 against Tamworth, and now 4 against Kings Lynn. They have got some injuries to key defenders, most notably Adam Anson at centre-back, but the strong point of a Jim Bentley team is supposed to be the defence and the organisation, but at the minute there's no cohesion in that back line, and injuries certainly aren't helping in that regard. But you shouldn't be conceding 4 goals a game, and this result sees them slip down into 19th. After beating relegation rivals Gloucester last match day, Darlington were looking to make it back-to-back wins as they faced bottom of the table Bishop Stortford, but 8 minutes in, Ryan Charles scored a brilliant little lob to put Bishop Stortford 1-0 up. Then in the 42nd minute, Darlington was slow to react to a short corner, and after an almighty goalmouth scramble, Darlington could not get the ball away, and Osman Sow turned the ball into the back of the net to put the Blues 2-0 up. Bishop Stortford went down to 10 men, but Darlington failed to take advantage in a massively demoralising 2-0 defeat to bottom of the table. Now as for the table, Scunthorpe and Tamworth are neck and neck, both level on 47 points. Chorley are 7 points behind in third, and Hereford's 2-1 win against Spennymoor keeps them in fourth. South Shields slip down into fifth, and Chester and Curzon sit sixth and seventh. As for the relegation zone, Bishop Stortford win keeps them bottom, but gives them some hope. Victory for Kings Lynn could have taken them out of the relegation zone, but Rushall Olympics' victory over South Shields meant Kings Lynn stay in the bottom four. Now on to Boxing Day, where we are going to start with a tasty local derby between 5th place South Shields at home to 17th place Blythe Spartans. And coming into the game, South Shields have been on an awful run of form, 3 consecutive losses, no wins in 4, and it wasn't looking good for them when 15 minutes into the game, Blythe were 2-0 up thanks to goals from Nicky de Vedricks and Cedric Main. And things got even worse for Shields when 35 minutes in, Finkel's and Dawson put Blythe 3-0 up in a dream first half for the Spartans. The second half wasn't much better from South Shields, who hardly created anything, but they did pull a goal back in the 87th minute through Paul Blackett, and the game finished 3-1. South Shields slipped down to 8th, and the board decided they'd seen enough after this display and sacked manager Julio Arca. Up until the Spennymoor game in November, results had been good. They were second, level on points with first, but since that 5-2 win against Spennymoor, Shields have had a big dip in form with 1 draw and 4 losses in the last 5. To me, the decision seems harsh, but performances have been absolutely dreadful these last couple of weeks, and stretching back a bit further to the start of October, despite some good results, there were some games that weren't won entirely convincingly, but only time will tell if this was the right decision or not. And we are going to stay in the North East, as there was another managerial sacking after Boxing Day. Darlington's 2-0 loss away to Scarborough was the final straw for Darlington board, who sacked their second manager of the season, parting ways with Josh Gowlin, and sadly this one was coming. He was appointed back in September, and since taking over, only 3 wins in 16 games, which include an 8-0 loss against Chorley, which was an absolute farce, and Darlington have got to get this next appointment right. They sit 23rd, 8 points from safety, and they are in danger of slipping into the Northern Premier League if things don't improve. And to rub salt into the wounds of Darlow fans, their player of the year last season, Alex Purver, was fantastic for Scarborough in this game, as he has been all season. Absolutely bossed the game in midfield, and this win takes Scarborough up into 6th, as Jonathan Greening continues to do a fantastic job. Game of the day came at Gloucester City, and it looked like they would get an unlikely win as Danny Wright put Gloucester 2-1 up with just 14 minutes left. But that lead did not last long, as 7 minutes later Hereford would go up the other end, where Andy Williams' header made the game 2-2. For the final 10 minutes, Hereford threw absolutely everything at Gloucester. In the 94th minute, Jason Cowley heads the ball into the back of the net, only for it to be disallowed by the referee for a suspected push to keep the game at 2-2. But in the 99th minute of the game, Ceesay's free kick takes a deflection, and Andy Williams, who came on as a sub, scores his second of the game to give Hereford a huge 3 points. Hereford were quite poor for a lot of that game, but they hammered Gloucester in the final 20 minutes, and they showed some great team spirit to get the win, and that win takes them up into 4th. Gutting for Gloucester to lose, and with all the bottom 7 teams losing on Boxing Day, it would have been a great opportunity to close the gap to safety. Now on to Chester, who went into their game against Warrington unbeaten in 7, and that good form continued with a fantastic 2-0 win. 12 minutes in, Declan Weeks put Chester ahead with an excellent strike. In the second half, Warrington had a change of shape and went to a back 4, and despite dominating the possession, they did very little with it. In the 95th minute, Chester sealed the win through Charlie Caton. That win puts them up into 5th, whereas Warrington missed the chance to close the gap on playoffs, and they moved down to 12th. It was an all-Derbyshire affair as Alfreton were at home to local rivals Buxton, and it was Buxton who started the better and in the 27th minute took the lead through Tom Elliott, who just about manages to sneak the ball in. In the 40th minute, Alfreton were given a penalty when Connor Brown shoved Jake Day in the back, which was coolly put away to make the game 1-1. Then in the 81st minute, Buxton failed to get the ball clear, and Lewis Salmon put the ball in from close range to give Alfreton the 2-1 win. A very hard-fought victory which puts them up into 11th, 3 points off the playoffs. So after Boxing Day, this is how the table looked. Scunthorpe and Tamworth both level on 50 points. Chorley and Hereford remain 3rd and 4th. Chester move up into 5th. Scarborough move into the playoff spots for the first time this season up into 6th. And Curzon stay in 7th. With none of the bottom 7 sides winning, there isn't much change in the table, but it's still fairly tight with only 5 points separating Blyth in 14th and the relegation zone. Now on to the final match day in December the 30th, and at the time of recording there's no highlights posted yet for any of the games, so we're just going to blitz through the results and see what this means for the table. We'll start with Scunthorpe, whose 2-0 win away to Farsley Celtic ensures they finish 2023 top of the table, but level on points with them is Tamworth. A 2-1 win away at Rush Hall ensures that Scunthorpe aren't running away with this. Tamworth are doing an incredible job keeping pace with them. Third place Chorley were 1-0 up at home to Spennymoor, but in the 72nd minute the game was abandoned due to heavy rain. This means the game will be rearranged for a later date starting at 0-0. Scarborough's 1-0 win away at managerless Darlington puts them up into 5th. Blyth do the double over their local rivals South Shields with a 2-1 win. South Shields are also managerless after just sacking Julio Arca. Bishop Stortford were leading twice against Peterborough Sports, but they ended up losing 4-2 to keep them rock bottom of the table, and the bottom 4 has actually remained the same all the way through December. Darlington and Gloucester have swapped places a few times, but it's been the same 4 teams who remain in the drop zone, and that is it for the December review. I've got a National League South December review coming up, or it might be uploaded by the time you're watching this, but until next month, have a good one.